I will be back in 2 seconds. I've got to go turn something off.
Good evening, everyone. And while we're waiting for things to begin, I'll ask that folks, when you submit a question, if you wouldn't mind putting your name just so we know who's submitting it, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, it is 7 o'clock. I think we are going to get started. Welcome, everyone. We're happy to have you with us tonight. This is the first in what we think will probably be a regular series again this year with the PASD Parent Chat with the Superintendent. So to our panelists tonight, joining Dr. Fegley, are Dr. Leroy Whitehead, who is our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Jessica Kilmetz, who is our Executive Director of Curriculum and Specialized Programs and Services, and Ms. Blake Emanuel, who is the Board President. I'm Sandy Claus. I'm the Coordinator for Communications and Community Relations. And just a couple of things. Ms. Emanuel already said, please make sure your name is attached to any questions that you are putting into the Q&A. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see something that says Q&A. So because this is a Zoom webinar format, you'll be able to see and hear all of the panelists. We will not be able to see and hear you, but we want you to be able to submit any of your questions through that format. A number of you already did submit questions when you registered. We're very pleased with that, and we have tried to incorporate as many of those into the actual presentation as we can. We will answer as many of your questions as we can in the hour. We will be done at 8 o'clock sharp. So we'll, without any further ado, I think we will get started with the presentation, and I will turn it over to Ms. Emanuel.
Thank you. Just want to review the things that we're going to cover this evening. I know there's lots of hot topics and issues that everybody's interested in, but for this evening's information, we're going to focus on this upcoming school year, the curriculum, and understandably the concerns relating to the pandemic. So we've already done the introductions. We're going to actually review, we've had some recent administrative changes. So looking at that, we'll look at our incoming kindergartners. And what most folks are here for, we're going to look at the 21-22 school year. So we'll further discuss in-person, virtual, and some of the realities that those are facing. We will remind folks about registration. It's never too late, but the sooner the better. And additional health and safety information, of course, while we're certainly going to be prompting questions. So Ms. Claus and I will moderate. So we already started receiving wonderful questions. We'll throw them in at the appropriate times. However, there also will be some time at the end for additional questions. And we will be wrapping up promptly at 8 unless things seem like they're really going to go over, but we will certainly keep everybody in the loop.
Okay. So over the summer, we've had a number of administrative changes take place. like to extend our congratulations to Dr. Parkinson, who has accepted the job as Superintendent of Schools of the Chester Upland School District. Also accepting a position over at Chester Upland will be Dr. Khalid Sutton. He's going to be going over there as a Chief Academic Officer. Being appointed as the high school principal will be Dr. Rose Scioli. Dr. Scioli comes to us with over 20 years experience and has been in the district for the last few years. Dr. Frank Garetano has been appointed the Executive Director of Schools and DEI. He's going to continue as the middle school principal until a new principal is found. We are in the process of doing those interviews right now and hope to have someone on board shortly. As was already announced, Dr. Jessica Kilmetz has been appointed the Executive Director of Curriculum and Specialized Program and Services. Ms. Natalie Horenko, who had been over at the middle school as a teacher and then has recently been one of our wonderful coaches that we have, has now been appointed the Assistant Principal for the Early Learning Center in Manavon Elementary Schools. And Mr. Thomas Henkel is going to be serving as the interim principal at the Early Learning Center while Dr. Champagne Lee is on her leave of absence for maternity. So a number of changes, but very exciting. Our position over at Barclay School, we are also in the process of interviewing and hope to have that one filled in the near future.
So we'd first like to start off by saying welcome to the class of 2034. Our kindergartners, we're so excited to welcome you to the Early Learning Center in August. It is time to register if you haven't already, so you can find those links on our website. And if you need some help, our registrar, Ms. Nancy Marsh, is a wonderful source of information, and her phone number is on the screen for you. We are offering this year our kindergarten camp to all incoming kindergartners. If you are interested in signing your student up, you can find out more information on our website. The camp is held mid-August and will give students an opportunity to meet some teachers, meet some new friends, to get acclimated to the building and some of our routines and procedures, as well as to introduce students to some foundational skills in literacy and math instruction as well. So we're really excited to bring back this incoming kindergarten camp this year and hope to welcome as many students as we can, ideally all of our incoming kindergartners, to the Early Learning Center for this camp in mid-August.
Thank you, Dr. Kilmetz. Earlier this year, when I say earlier this year, it was in March, the Board of Education asked that a task force be formed in order to look at what this upcoming year would be like. The task force met for a number of times. The task force included teachers, administrators throughout the schools, and covering all the professions within the schools. They met a number of times and presented their findings to the Board of Education in June. At that meeting, they recommend that there be two options for this upcoming year: in person, which is the most recommended, and all virtual option for those students who wish to remain virtual for the upcoming school year. We're going to start going through the details of these two recommendations and these two options, but it's important to note that this task force felt very, very firmly that the hybrid model, which was used a great deal last year, was one that was not good for students and honestly for the teachers. It was very, very difficult to manage. And we need to go back to some pure models, the pure models being in person and all virtual. In addition, the task force recommended that kindergarten, first and second grade not have a virtual option. And that's because of their significant learning needs and the need to make sure that we're getting them up to speed in reading. We saw students have great difficulty learning how to read online, quite frankly. And as we're looking at that, the needs of the kids really weighed heavily on the decisions and recommendations that this task force made to the Board of Education.
Okay, so let's talk about in-person instruction and what everyone needs to know. We're so excited that we'll be able to be back in in-person instruction while also maintaining some of our mitigation protocols that we've had throughout. And I would encourage everyone, when you get a chance, to actually take a look at our health and safety plan. It is a new format from the state, from the federal government. It's an abbreviated version. It went from 69 pages down to 15, so that's really cool. And it talks about our mitigation strategies that we've had, and we can always reactivate should we need to. So traditional 5-week model is what we're looking at for in-person instruction. We'll talk more about the virtual option later. A lot of the mitigation strategies that were incorporated during the strict lockdown procedures during the heart of the pandemic we're able now to relax some of those, such as lockers and cubbies now will be accessible, which is really convenient for everybody. Cafeteria will be used for lunches for a change. What a novel concept that is. Traffic in the hallways will be two directional rather than just one directional as they had been. And of course, we'll continue utilizing technology with laptops being provided for our students. Safety protocols that we're obviously going to continue. We're going to continue to the best extent possible for 3 feet social distancing. We're going to continue that. Those mitigation factors, obviously the cleaning and sanitizing, air ventilation, all of those kinds of factors we're going to continue as we have been doing. The sanitizing sprays for the buses, the misters, as they're called, will be continued to be used with our new bus company. Obviously, the hot topic we've all been monitoring, we've all been watching on the news, is masking and universal masking. Universal masking is no longer required, obviously. Though this is an area that's still in flux. We're going to be very transparent with folks. If you watch the news tonight, our federal Congress is talking about this at the federal level. And so we are looking at the CDC recommendations. We're looking at the American Pediatric recommendations. We are meeting regularly with the Chester County Department of Health. As we have been for the past year and a half, we will follow Chester County Department of Health guidelines. And so we are looking forward to those revised guidelines next week. But at this juncture, we're asking those individuals who are vaccinated masking would be optional for those folks. If you are not yet vaccinated or able to be vaccinated, we're asking those folks to wear a mask. And so that's where we stand. This is changing on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, quite frankly. And we're continuing to monitor rates. We're continuing to look at other counties like Montgomery County and some of the graduated schemes that they're using, schematics that they're using. So we're looking at a lot of different factors right now with regards to masking. And obviously, we realize it's tough to make a decision right now, but that is the best recommendation that we are making right now based on that. Busing, obviously, all public transportation, which includes bus, are required. You are required to wear a mask. And so busing, we're asking folks to make sure all students to wear their masks on the bus. Well, that's the current. And again, this guidance is ever changing, and we're looking forward to that guidance next week from the Chester County Department of Health.
And just to add on to that, Dr. Whitehead,
Please.
Yesterday, the Chester County superintendents did meet with the Chester County Health Department. They did sit there and they did tell us that they would be coming out with guidance next week. But at this point, they're looking at if you are vaccinated, you do not need to wear a mask. If you're not unvaccinated, they're recommending that masks be worn. And that would be for all who are unvaccinated. So the younger students who cannot be vaccinated, they are recommending that when they come back to school at this point, that they do wear masks. That is the recommendation that at this point, PASD will follow. But as we said last year, at every one of these, this situation is changing and it keeps evolving. And I expect that we will know probably not until near the board meeting in August what the actual final guidance is going to be. But please know we will keep putting it on our website. We'll keep people informed as we hear the changing guidance and as the recommendations are made.
Dr. Fagley, we have a question that I think is appropriate to ask right now. So they're saying with the changing guidance, it's wondering if we will put off our deadline for folks to make their decision between in-person and virtual.
That's a wonderful question. And it's one that's very difficult for us to answer because we really need to know what our staffing is going to be now. And we need to get a good idea of what and how many virtual teachers we need and how many in-person teachers we need. That's why we're asking people to try to make their selection now. We had received several requests earlier today that could we change our mind later in the year? You had said that this decision was for an entire year. In being respectful to the educational task force and respectful to the Board of Education, at the June meeting, it was recommended that the decision be made for a year. We talked about it as administrators, and what we will do is we're going to go back to the educational task force, ask them if they would consider that, adding some set times for people to make changes during the year, and then we'll go to the board with that recommendation. So that's something I'm going to have to get back to folks about next week once we hear from the educational task force. I think the other part, though, to know, Mrs. Claus, is right now, last year at this time, we were talking about closing schools, not being able to be in school, all those crazy things. And this year, we're not talking about that. Everybody, every health department we've talked to has said it is most important for the students to be in school, in learning, and that keep doing the mitigation work that we did last year to the fullest extent that you're able to, as long as you can keep all the students in. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're keeping the students in when we're making these recommendations. So I appreciate everybody's grace on this. I appreciate everybody's frustration. I can tell you I'm equally frustrated with it because we thought we were in a good place and then it keeps changing a little bit. But we do know how to make the changes. We've gone through them all. And our goal is to make sure that all students remain in school all year this year.
Additional mask questions.
Yes.
How will masking be enforced?
The masking would be enforced by requesting that the students place the mask back on. What we did last year, we had conversations with students and they worked very well. We have found that overall the students really do want to keep each other safe. And that's part of what it is. It's keeping myself safe and keeping others safe. And when you talk to students that way, they follow through and they do a great job. It's also important to know that the adults that are unvaccinated in the building will be wearing masks at all times, even now. So that's a piece that we do want to put out there. Unvaccinated adults, once we're back in school and we have the kids in the building, will be wearing masks.
And just to add to that, I saw in another question, if you are vaccinated and you still want to wear a mask, you're certainly able to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
One more follow-up question. How do we know which children are vaccinated?
We're going to have to be going on the honor system. We cannot require children to tell us if they are vaccinated or not, or their parents to tell us whether they're vaccinated or not. But again, I have found that the students are always very honest and always want to do the very best for each other. And I believe that the students will be honest and will follow through. If they're asked to mask up, given the circumstances, that they will mask up.
One more quick one here. We have, if a student has to quarantine, how will attendance work? And what if they have to quarantine more than once? What's the leniency with the absences?
So if they need to quarantine more than once and we're getting to the absences, we'll be lenient on those absences. Those are going to be marked out as excused absences. A student who is going to be quarantining, from what we're hearing right now, the quarantine period seems to be decreasing, although we're waiting to learn some more. We will have all lessons on campus for students, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But the lessons will be on for campus so that the students may be able to access the lessons and do the classwork. But it would be counted as an excused absence if they're required to quarantine.
Correct. And I would also just add to that, Dr. Fegley, that CHOP guidelines, or CHOP Policy Lab is also recommending, and we have continued access to antigen testing by Next Now, which if a parent gets permission, our school nurses can administer an antigen test, which would greatly shorten that quarantining period, if at all, if it's needed at all.
And another important recommendation from the Educational Task Force was that if a student needs to quarantine, that we will provide them tutoring in order to make sure that they're staying up to speed. So that would be tutoring that would provide it for that student on Zoom at that point, because it's going to be with that individual student or two students. And so we'll make sure that the students are caught up, that we don't have them fall behind. So it's going to be very important. And that was one of those areas of expenses that the Educational Task Force asked us to ask the board for, and the board was generous to grant those additional funds in order to make sure we had tutors to help in those situations.
Dr. Fegley, we're having some questions about our staff being vaccinated, and are we requiring that? How are we tracking that? I know you said we aren't with students, but how are we handling staff?
So staff, we are allowed to ask whether they're vaccinated or not. We are tracking that, so we will know whether staff are vaccinated or not. Right now, there's not a requirement for staff to be vaccinated, although we have a very, very high percentage of staff who are vaccinated. Last look, it was over 80%. That that requirement may come in at the time when the vaccine is fully approved and the PA Department of Health says that all need to be vaccinated in the educational workplace. But that is a PA Department of Health decision. That's not a school board decision.
Additional question relating to vaccines and spread in regards to individuals who are vaccinated still potentially spreading, individuals wondering how do you handle this? And I'm flashing back to all of our Swiss cheese models that we talked about. But if you wouldn't mind sharing again the information regarding all of the mitigation efforts that we are doing in addition to masks.
I can start and Dr. Fegley can jump in. Yeah. Certainly we're still maintaining 3 feet distancing it to the best that we can. There's some classrooms that are a little tighter, but we're doing that. We're continuing our cleaning protocols that we've been using. We're continuing to utilize the misters for our buses, even with our new bus company. And again, as is mentioned in the health and safety plan, a lot of the other strategies that you see here with regards to one-way traffic in the hallways, limiting the use of common touch areas, those can be reactivated again, if needed. Hopefully we won't need to do that. But some of those more severe mitigation strategies, we still have dividers and plexiglass areas in higher contact areas. So there are a lot of mitigation strategies that we're still going to continue to use.
And my computer froze for a second, Dr. Whiteside. So I don't know if you mentioned ventilation. We do have our ventilation system with HEPA filters in it and bringing in a significant amount of outdoor air.
One other vaccine point that I just wanted to clarify real quick, because there was a couple of comments to it, as in regards to requiring proof of vaccination compared to other vaccines, which we do. And I just wanted to clarify, that's actually a legal standpoint. So other vaccines are required by law, whereas the COVID vaccine is not. Therefore, we certainly can request the information, but we cannot demand the information from folks. So I just wanted to clarify those vaccine pieces.
And we have, and President Emanuel, we have had a number of parents that have been informing our school nurses with regards to that. And if they want to volunteer that information, that's very helpful.
And we're going to hit on this later, but I would just want to remind folks, we have a vaccine clinic coming up on August 4th. If your child is eligible, please consider taking them and getting the vaccine.
Another question we have, will classrooms be shut down if there is a positive case in that classroom?
We will be following the protocol that has been put out by Chester County Health Department and CDC. What we're hearing right now is that if both parties have been masked, then there's not going to be a need to shut down the classroom, but there will be testing that takes place. So it's going to vary on the masking, number of masks that are taking place. And honestly, it's going to depend on the social distancing that is taking place and the close contact that is determined. But it is possible that we will be shutting down a classroom. At that point, that classroom will go full virtual. All students will be virtual at that point for the period of time that we need to shut down that classrooms or situation. Good question. Thank you. Are there others before we move on?
I think we've hit them. They're coming in fast and furious. I love it, but I think we've hit them thus far.
Okay.
So as Dr. Fegley mentioned, we are getting back to a more traditional approach to in-person instruction. We'll be bringing back collaborative activities and lab activities and social and emotional activities for students and staff, but we are still asking that each student has a laptop. And that device will be used for in-person instruction. We recognize during the pandemic that there is a huge need to increase the technology efficacy and instructional skills for our students. And so we're embedding best practice instructional technology use into our in-person instruction. We also, of course, use laptops for all sorts of great programming and software that you currently have access to this summer. And so for that reason, we are asking that every student have a laptop or device to use in the classroom. We can provide that device to you, or you can have the option to bring your own technology to school. There is an insurance fee of $50 should you choose to take a district loaned device. But if you need assistance with that fee, we're happy to help. Please just reach out and let us know. If you have a district assigned laptop currently, you don't need to request a new one. That laptop will remain with you. But we do need students to have a device that they can bring to school with them on a daily basis. For our younger students, if your child wants to leave that device in the classroom so that they don't bring it back and forth, if it's heavy or you're worried about it getting damaged, it's possible for your student to leave it in the classroom, and we will have overnight charging stations for those computers.
Dr. Kilman, sorry.
No,
No, I was going to ask. I'm sorry. I thought you were finished with that. I was just if they have not had a district laptop in the past, how do they sign up? That's probably where you were going anyway.
That is where I was going. So there is information on our website about signing up for a district loaned device, and that's how you would request one. If you do need one and you have multiple children, just please make sure to request one for all the children in your family who need one.
I did want to add one quick additional comment. So for the insurance fee, it's $50 per family. There's a $150 cap.
Yes.
Depending, if your family is larger than 3 children. And I just want to reiterate, if this is at all a hardship for your family, please reach out to your child's team. There is assistance. PCEF has been wonderful in supporting, and we definitely don't want that to be prohibitive for anyone.
And please be aware too that this year the insurance fee will be billed in the fall, so you can expect that to show up, and you can pay via school pay through Skyward in probably October.
And then one follow-up question. So what grades are considered younger students in regards to leaving laptops at school instead of carrying them back and forth?
Great question. Really, any of our elementary students that can be possible for.
Okay.
Where on the website can we find the sign up? I believe they're referring to the technology piece. If you go on the website, they're under departments. There is the technology department and all the information, including additional things like if you're bringing your own, what kind of technology do you need? Things like that can all be found under the technology department tab on the website.
Great question. And one recent change for those families who have incoming kindergartners, we recently approved the bring your own technology of an iPad for your student. So if you have an iPad for your student that you would like to use for your kindergartner, that technology is okay. For grades 1 and up, we are requesting what's listed there on the website.
Great.
So for all virtual instruction this year, we will have teachers who are assigned to virtual classrooms. That means there's no longer students at home zooming in to an in-person class. They will be interacting at the elementary level with classmates who are in the same class as them with their own dedicated virtual teacher. Of course, we talked about the district provided laptops. Those are available for any student who is working virtually. At this time, we're not recommending, due to the Educational Task Force recommendation, we're not recommending that students in kindergarten, 1st or 2nd grade engage in virtual learning. We've learned that it's so hard to really teach specifically those foundational literacy skills via Zoom, and that it's much more effective and efficient in person. And that we recommend that students in those grades be in person. For grades 3 through 5, that's where we will have our dedicated virtual classroom teacher who will be a PASD teacher assigned to the virtual students. They will be working through a combination of synchronous Zoom time and asynchronous assignments and lesson materials that can be found on Canvas. So for those students, if you are going to be a virtual student in grades 3 through 5, we Please note you will be working, on Canvas, and we do want you to feel comfortable in that platform. We will be offering parent trainings early fall. So if you do want to help your student on Canvas, it's not required, but certainly you're welcome to attend the trainings that we'll be announcing for the fall. For students in grades 6 through 12, they will be participating in asynchronous instruction. Those lessons will be posted online for students to access really on their own schedule. So that means there's not a specific Zoom schedule that those secondary students will be following, but you will have time to interact with a teacher for support, who that teacher can kind of monitor students' progress, see where help might be needed. But all the lessons would be done via an online platform. Band and chorus will be offered in person to secondary students, and students can of course participate in all extracurricular activities if they are virtual.
So we do have quite a few questions. Clarification regarding K-2. Is there no virtual option for K-2?
Please call us to discuss. Every family has their own individual circumstances. We really want to have a conversation with you, figure out what's best for you, your family, your student. So please give your child's principal a call and let's have a conversation.
One of the questions was how many students are currently signed up for the virtual option, or percentage?
It's a very low percentage right now, but I don't know the exact.
Right now, it's less than 20 students have indicated that they're interested in the virtual. So it's less than 1%.
For K-12, will there be any student-to-student virtual interaction? How will foreign language, STEM, music, etc. be taught?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? My computer cut out.
No worries. For for 6 to 12, so secondary, will there be any student-to-student virtual interaction? And then how will, I don't want to say non-content, but foreign language, STEM, music, etc. be taught in the virtual?
So all courses would be asynchronous, which means that there is not student-to-student contact. That said, of course, if you wanted to connect your child with another student who was working virtually, we would welcome and encourage that, but there wouldn't be time for that during the school day.
Then to a couple along the same line, specifically regarding elementary school students, if they go virtual, is it going to be a mix of schools, or are they going to be separated out into the current Barkley, Schuylkill, Manavon schools?
So right now our enrollment is low district wide, and so we would not separate that out into each individual school. That would be a combined group.
And then follow-up question to a comment I made. I apologize. So when I say secondary students, I mean students in grades 6 to 12. It has nothing to do with virtual versus in person. And then we do have a question regarding getting additional detailed information. So if a parent has additional follow-up questions, parent, guardian, family member, who should they reach out to in the district with those questions?
Depends on the individual circumstances of that parent. If you have questions about the content of this presentation, you're welcome to reach out to myself. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you're looking for school-specific information, then that's a great time to reach out to your child's principal. And if you're looking for information specific to specialized programs, whether those be ELD programs or special education, 504, gifted, all those types of questions would then be directed to your supervisor in SPS.
How would attendance work for virtual middle school students?
So for virtual middle school students and virtual high school students, attendance will be based on whether or not you're submitting those learning activities through the platform for learning. If you're not submitting those activities, that's when your support teacher would be connecting with you. They'll be connecting with you anyway, but they would be asking you, how we can help, what we might be able to do to increase your online presence and participation and really make sure that you're truly engaged in learning. And so that's how attendance will be taken, but we'll be monitoring, of course, submissions very closely.
And please realize that on these programs, we're able to see when the student logs in to take the course and take the lessons. So we know whether or not a student has gone in and worked on their math work or even looked at their math work over by the minute. So attendance is not taken that way, but we can go back and look at that and say, oh yeah, but you haven't been on that for the last 4 or 5 days, and know specifically that the student hasn't, because we can see that logged in on the system.
And there's several here. This ties in with an earlier conversation, but the reoccurring concern, right, that we don't. Some of these factors are not concrete. So if you could speak again to folks potentially switching in and out. So, for example, one question was for elementary students once they're vaccinated. Another one was can't do just the concern regarding the guidance that's coming out. And there was another one. If cases increase and a parent that was originally comfortable with in-person no longer is comfortable. So if you don't mind, again, sharing where that is.
So again, that's a really good question that has been popping up over the last 2 days. We're going to bring back the educational task force to talk with them about how they would like to see that a possible movement coming in and out. Because back in June, they recommended it be for the entire year. The board accepted that. So to be respectful to both groups, we'll bring back the educational task force. And then once we get a recommendation, we'll send that to the board to see if they are willing to go with that recommendation for moving in and out. My gut is, and it's just a gut, if they accept that their student be able to come in and out, that it will be done at specific time breaks. Maybe it's on the semester or at the marking period end. I'm not saying that's when it will be, but I'm guessing that it's going to be just to keep some continuity of education going for everybody. And again, it becomes a staffing challenge. If suddenly everyone goes out or comes in, it's very, very difficult. So we need a little bit of planning time on that.
Thank you. I think that's all the questions for this moment.
Okay. So what's some of the new things that are going to be coming in for the 2021-2022 school year? People have been asking, how are you using your Esser funds? Everyone says you received this Esser money. How's it being used? Well, initially, a lot of the use of that was for PPE, making sure we had the masks, making sure we had the ventilation systems, the HEPA filters, all that different physical material. We have received more, and so we're bringing some more resources specifically under the recommendation from the Educational Task Force and approval by the board. We will be adding an elementary math instructional coach this year. We'll be adding 6 to 12 math interventionists, one at the middle school and one at the high school. These are the mathematics area, just like the reading area, is an area that is difficult at times to teach virtually, and we want to sit there and give extra support to all those students. We're going to bringing in an instructional technology coach. This is primarily for the faculty to sit there and help keeping them learning on how to move forward and doing their work the best. We're going to be adding parent trainings this year. Dr. Kilmetz talked about the ones at the beginning of the year that will be taking place. I believe it's in September for Canvas training. We'll be doing Canvas training. And then throughout the year, we're going to be giving other trainings on mental health and other areas of support that are necessary for our students. And lastly, or another area, the board approved a large expenditure for additional mental health support for all of our students and honestly for our staff, because it has been a stressful year last year. It is going to continue probably to be a stressful year this year, although we would hope it's less stressful, but we know that we need to give additional mental supports to all, and the board did approve that as well. So we're excited about having these additional positions and additional work in order to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all students.
So at this time, I actually want to take a moment just to acknowledge how challenging our ask is. We absolutely understand and appreciate that making a decision with so many variables and we jumped ahead. Sorry, somebody else. Oh, can you move the slide back? I'm sorry.
To this one?
Yeah, that's where we are, right?
Okay, yep, I wasn't sure. Okay, thank you.
That's okay. There are so many variables. We absolutely wish we had more concrete answers from the medical authorities who are analyzing this information. You know, we're not doctors, we acknowledge that, and we're looking for guidance. And we know that it's very challenging. It's hard to make a decision for your child without certain information. So while we don't have all the answers, I I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that. This is absolutely challenging. And with that said, please register your choice. We would really appreciate it. We know it's, like I said, we know it's challenging. We have just over 2,200 students who have selected their choice. But unlike previous choices, we don't have a default answer here. So what we're going to do is contact individually each family who did not make a selection for their child. Again, acknowledging it is challenging, and we're going to continue to pushing out the information and the updates as we have them. And at the same time, we're going to ask for understanding and grace. And if you wouldn't mind, please fill out your student choice. It can be found in Skyward. There are instructions on the website. And if you even just go to the main homepage, you'll see that alert pop up that can direct you. But we do ask ASAP if you could please fill out your choices for your students.
Sorry, I was typing an answer. So as Dr. Fegley had already mentioned, stole my thunder. We have another clinic. We are one of the few districts that are offering a summer clinic. So we're very excited. We want to thank our many partners in the community, the hospital, the EMT folks. I'm going to leave somebody out because there's a bunch of them.
Gateway Pharmacy.
Gateway Pharmacy, of course. All those folks, they're terrific partners, terrific community partners, the mayor's office, and so on and so forth. So August 4th will be the first shot for those 12 and up. August 25th will be the second shot. This will be a different location, though. This is very important. So we will not be using the football stadium like we have been doing. This will occur at the front entrance of the auditorium by the middle school, where you go in for all the great shows that the middle school does. It'll be right on that concrete deck right there. We'll have a place set up. Folks, once you get your shot, you have to wait 15 minutes. And then you can continue right around. So we're going to kind of have a circle flow of traffic. We'll also be doing a supply drop-off on the opposite side. So if you want to drop off some school supplies and donate some school supplies, we'll have a table set up over there too. So we're very excited about that. I believe the sign-up form, it's a very simplified sign-up form this time. We just need the overall number. We don't need grades and things like that. We just need the overall number of individuals that are coming. Parents can also receive the vaccine. Very important. So bring your grandparents. We're going to basically, anybody that shows up, we're going to give a vaccine. So we're really excited about that. So please take advantage of this opportunity.
Dr. Whitehead, is it possible if I need my second Pfizer shot and it's time that I could show up and get my second Pfizer shot?
It is. It is. We're looking really to get shots in arms. They do have to, Gateway Pharmacy does have to track that a little bit and report that back to the state, but they've been pretty liberal with that. So that's great.
That's great. Thank you.
Dr. Whitehead, while we're talking about vaccines, there is a question specifically about the middle school asking, since some of those students are old enough to be vaccinated, some of them are not. How are we going to handle that and making sure that everyone is kept safe?
Sure. Again, going back to slide number 7, if you are unvaccinated, we're asking you to wear a mask or not able to be vaccinated. We've had some circumstances where students, depending on where their birthday is and when they can get, vaccinated. We had one individual, unfortunately, that literally missed it by one day. And unfortunately, due to federal guidelines, Gateway Pharmacy cannot do that. So fortunately, there was another vaccine clinic in the area. So, I mean, obviously vaccines are pretty prevalent everywhere, but with regards to those students that are not able to be vaccinated, we're going to continue to ask those folks to wear masks.
So not vaccine related, but obviously still COVID related. If you don't mind reiterating, so the process of if there is an exposure, what does that look like from the notification of exposure, determination of how to move forward, all those components?
Yep. I'll start, and again, Dr. Fegley can jump in. The parameters right now we're still waiting for those final guidelines next week, as I said, from the Chester County Department of Health. So there may be some fluctuation with that. The CHOP lab guidance currently right now states that if both individuals are masked, that quarantining can be greatly reduced if it's needed even at all, if the student agrees to an antigen test. If the antigen test is negative, they can come back to school immediately. There's no quarantine. That's the CHOP Policy Lab recommendation. The Chester County recommendation may be a little bit different next week. We're going to have to wait and see. And again, as Dr. Fagley mentioned earlier, if we do have a spread in a particular classroom, we are going to reutilize, those circumstances where we may have to move that class to virtual. We're hopeful that with the new guidelines and with the increased vaccinations, we won't have to use.
One quick clarification.
Oh, I'm sorry, if I could just expand a little bit more. If we do have a positive case in the school, we will notify folks in the school. We'll send home the letter. We will also notify you whether or not you were a close contact in that particular situation. So there'll be 2 levels of notification taking place. We will also, as we did last year, have our, I'll call it the COVID chart on the website so that you can see how many cases have occurred in the buildings throughout the week. So that we'll be starting that up on the very first week, August 30th of school.
So, and I wanted to clarify one quick component of Dr. Whitehead's answer. It was, you had mentioned spread in the classroom. I wanted to clarify that to be a case in the classroom,
yes.
Not spread.
Right.
Then there is a question regarding infection in the class. How it will be handled refers to both people being masked who are both in a classroom full of children.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question? I didn't quite understand.
I'm a little confused as well. So if the participant wouldn't mind reframing, but the verbiage is this answer regarding how infection in the class will be handled refers to both people being masked. Who are the both in a classroom full of children?
So I'll take a stab at that. I think what the gentleman is referring to is if the close contact is the person and the individual who is asymptomatic or possibly symptomatic.
Right.
That's who we're referring to with the masking situation. I also just want to point out, with our summer programming, we've had a very robust summer programming with large numbers. We have not had any cases whatsoever. We actually did administer, at my last understanding, I think 5 antigen tests were administered, 5 to 6 antigen tests, maybe a little bit more. All came back negative, so that's good news.
So there is a question on here that I will take because it's my favorite. So the question is, are the free breakfast and lunches going to continue? And there was another question, I believe, that may have been answered. But yes, the USDA has approved free breakfast and lunch for the entirety of the 21-22 school year. The one caveat I would put on there, because I think the other question, and I don't know where it went, so I apologize to that person, was regarding fund balances in the meal account for secondary students, especially where there are a lot more choices. So you have these a la carte items that students can get. Those still have a fee. When we say the free breakfast and lunch, we're talking about the meals that are pre-planned, like your calendar comes out with your days. So those are the pre-planned meals that are free. It is not the a la carte items. So if your middle schooler grabs a taco or your high schooler grabs a salad, there is a fee associated with those. So I do want to clarify the difference between the two. But yes, the program that was in place last year will be in place this year as well.
On that, Ms. Emanuel, one of the things is if you take the regular meal and so you think you're going to get free, but you say, I don't want the fruit or I don't want the milk, then it becomes an a la carte item. So we ask everyone, please take all components of the meal, take them. And if you don't want the milk or you don't want the fruit, there's a place, go give it to a friend, put it on the table. We have an exchange table that takes place in most of the cafeterias so that you still get the meal at no cost versus having to pay for something that really you shouldn't have to pay for this year.
There's another follow-up question regarding notification for cases. And I believe we hit on this, but if you wouldn't mind reiterating, what does it look like? When should a parent expect that overarching letter that goes to the whole district versus an individual communication from a classroom?
So I tend to answer, our nurses do call. If your child is a close contact, you will receive a call from our school nurse informing you and recommending that you get your child tested.
So Dr. Whitehead, a close contact is you walk by somebody in the hallway, you sit next to someone in a classroom for the entire day. Is there a time period that we're looking at that to consider close contact?
Sure. The original parameter that was being used that we were following from Chester County Department of Health was 15-minute cumulative. That may change, however, with the new guidelines. So I want to be clear about that.
Is parental consent required before a student can be tested?
Yes, it is.
There was a follow-up food question regarding account balances. Would like to reiterate, I know we've said it before, but if there are hardships and if it is challenging to pay off a large bill, please reach out to your child or children's team. We do have assistance for that. And I can't personally speak to if somebody else wants to jump in a large account balance and paying that off in payments. I'm not sure how that would work.
Yes, we would work with it. We'll work with any family on a payment plan. We'll work with families who are facing financial hardship and are not able to pay past bills, because really there shouldn't be any bills from last year, I would hope. You're going back a ways, and there should not be any bills this year because everyone is eligible. Everyone is eligible for a free lunch and a free breakfast this year.
And just one additional piece for families, I had mentioned the a la carte items. One of the things you can do through Skyward is turn off that option for your student. So from a little bit of a management standpoint on the parent side, would advise folks look into that if that is a concern as well.
We should let people know that we're very excited. We have a new food provider this year. Aramark Foods has joined the Phoenixville Area School District. I have to tell you, I was pleased. We had a gathering for the staff that was working the summer and had some of their food. It was very, very well done, and we're getting good reviews from the summer programs that are having the food delivered as well. So we're looking forward to continuing to grow our food service operation.
And would
Just
you
a quick-
mind,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
just gonna say, would you mind reiterating if a parent or guardian wants to further discuss the virtual versus in-person options? What are there's different levels depending on what they need to discuss, but who should they go to for what?
So in person, they should go to their principal, the principal of the building. For the virtual right now, please call Dr. Kilmetz, and then we will work on filtering out those questions to the various folk.
All right. There is a question. Is there a new bus company this year?
There is a new bus company. It's Christ Bus Company. We'll be running our buses this year. We're excited because instead of saying Wolfington on the side or Christ on the side, it should now say, when you see the buses, Phoenixville Area School District on the side. So you will know it's a Phoenixville Area School District coming to pick up your child. Unless it, of course, is one of the sub buses, which occasionally happens when we have a breakdown. But yes, we do have a new bus company that will be transporting all students.
So there is a question here that I will actually take as well. It's regarding the school board. We are, as a board, we are continuing to review the guidance. Administrative team is working very hard, working with governing authorities, the pandemic team, the instructional teams to provide the board with recommendations. We will continue to review all this information and at our public meetings, continue to discuss and continue to vote in situations that require it, if there are going to be changes that are made. So we are certainly reviewing all information from all sources. So here's a school-specific question, and I'll pose it and then also suggest the individual school websites have some great information on them as well. So if you go to the PASD website and then you click down on schools, you can find your student's school and pull up some additional information. But this individual would like information on clubs and after-school programs at school.
And I believe we did say that there will be extracurricular activities offered at the elementary and secondary level. Dr. Whitehead, do you want to address the for music? And I think you may have, but if you can do it again, just because that question was asked on how students, whether they're virtual or in person, can participate in extracurriculars.
Yes, we're asking those individuals who want to participate in those kinds of activities to be in person. And so that would include both extracurricular music and co-curricular music that is actual class, particularly at the secondary level.
So you can be a virtual student and come in for the extracurricular activities. So that's important to know. It's also important to know that we will be expanding the list of extracurricular activities this year. We're bringing in the outside agencies again. They will have to follow whatever the rules are at that time for masking, et cetera, and for vaccinations and all that, whatever it happens to be at that point. But we are looking at bringing back what I'll call the typical activities from years past to come on in. But you can be in person or you can be virtual and participate in all extracurricular or sporting activities.
So there was a question and then it went away, so I'm not sure where it went. But if a student last year did not utilize transportation and they are going to or want to utilize it this year, does the family need to contact the transportation department?
If they are in the transportation area, they do not need to contact the transportation department. I.e., if there's a bus that comes to your neighborhood, there's a seat for you on the bus.
It's just, so essentially it's assumed.
We're assuming everyone's coming in on the bus.
There is another question for lunches brought from home. Do students have means to heat food up?
Right now, we do not have that means. So it would, if you're looking for something to be warm, you will need to have it in a thermos so it stays warm until the lunchtime.
Dr. Fickley, there was a question about spectators at games. I don't know that we talked about sports. Right now, at least, what are the plans for sports and spectators and all of those things?
Right now, under the governor's orders, we're at full capacity. So yes, again, the same type of cautionary situations exist. If you're in a crowded area, they're recommending that masks be worn, vaccinated and unvaccinated. But yes, we are going to be having spectators right now at all athletic and other events. So the play will actually run this year.
And so that ties in wonderfully to this question that just popped up, which you've mostly answered, but open house, conferences, assemblies, field trips, all the good things.
We will be looking. Go ahead, Doctor.
Sorry, I was just going to say that we are actually planning to offer more opportunities for students to see their teachers in their buildings prior to the start of the school year. So this year at the elementary levels, we'll be having a sneak a peek event for all our elementary buildings. That will be taking place in August, and you'll hear from your principal about those opportunities. We will have opportunities for some of our 6 through 12 students to come into the buildings in August, late August as well. And then at the middle school and the high school, we'll be having our open house events in early September. So you can look forward to that. We'll be holding our ELD family night in September once again. And of course, we'll be offering those technology-related parent trainings in the month of September around Canvas and Skyward and Remind, which is a messaging system that we've been using as well. So you'll see all those things come out real soon.
Dr. Kilmes, there was a question about open house. I know you were just talking about the sneak a peek, but can you talk about Zoom and how it might be used for some of things like parent-teacher conferences or something like that?
That's a really great point, Mrs. Claus. So we did, of course, learn during the pandemic that many of you really loved having the option to meet virtually with your child's teachers, and that option will be available during parent-teacher conferences, for IEP-related meetings as well. And whenever you're asked to come into the building or you initiate a conference with your child's school, you always have the option to ask for that to be a virtual meeting. And we'll, of course, if it's possible, which we can't imagine why it wouldn't be, then we would love to meet with you, whether that's virtual or in person. So we're trying to make things more convenient for you and for your family, since we heard that that's something that you want.
So I'll take last two questions real quick. If you want to know what specific extracurricular activities are offered in your school, please contact your building principal. They do vary at the elementary level. by building. And also, yes, we are going to be looking at having parent volunteers come into the building this year. We will be asking for certain protocol to take place, but that is something that will be occurring.
All right, with that, Dr. Fegley, we have about 3 minutes left, I believe. So we're going to do a real quick opportunity for any of our panelists, if you have any last thoughts that you would like to share. Ms. Emanuel, can I start with you?
Sure. I do. I just want to reiterate, I acknowledge and appreciate that this is challenging. It's very challenging. As a parent of 2 in the district, I do truly understand. There are so many uncertainties and so many things we wish we had answers to, and questions and challenges. But we do, we are thankful to be here. We are thankful to be working with everyone, and just really appreciate the opportunity to continue to discuss this and continue to work through these challenging times together. I just want to thank everyone so much for joining us this evening, and thank anybody who chooses to watch this afterwards.
Dr. Kilmetz?
We just want to say thank you for your support over this last year and a half. We really are excited to get to our new normal of in-person instruction, keeping our safety protocols in mind while returning to best practices for instruction for our students, and making sure that we're providing all of the options that school affords, be that social interaction between students and adults and students, or learning activities.
You, Dr. Whitehead.
Sure. A few weeks ago, I had a parent contact me with some concerns, and I was emailing back and forth, and we had this great conversation electronically. But the parent shared some information that was really outstanding information that I was not yet even aware of, and it really caused some really good conversations between Dr. Fegley and myself and other cabinet members. And so I think it's really important for parents to continually reach out. If you have information or questions, again, as President Emanuel mentioned, unfortunately, we're having some of this uncertainty with recommendations right now. And it's, I'm frustrated as well that there's a delay in some of the recommendations at the local level. But please know that, we're continually monitoring just like everyone else is. And if you have some information that you feel is really important, please feel free to send it to me, because I may not be aware. Thank you.
And Dr. Fegley.
Well, everyone said everything so well already. Thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing as parents, all that you're doing in the community. Phoenixville is absolutely amazing. When I talk to the other superintendents around Chester County, Delaware County, Montgomery County, they are impressed beyond belief about how, yes, we're having these difficult conversations. Yes, we're not always in agreement, but yes, we really always come together and work together to try to do the very best for the students. And that's what it's about. It's about trying to make the very best decisions we can to support you and your decisions for your students. We do understand it's challenging. I would love to have concrete answers right now, but I feel like we're somewhat back to last year, but we're better off. And we're better off because we know we're going to be in. We know we're going to hold school. We know we're going to run extracurricular activities. We know we're getting back to more typical. Yes, we still have challenges. Yes, we're going to have some disagreements, but thank you. Thank you for the respectful conversations. Thank you for helping make us better. So with that, thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us tonight. We're excited for the start of the school year. We are confident it's going to be a great year. So, and just for the record, my hair is really not purple. I have no idea why it looks like this tonight, but so I do have purple pride, but yeah, I'm not sure what this is. So, all right, everybody, thanks so much for joining.
Color you should go with.
Thanks for joining us. This is recorded, and so if you want to come back and refer to any of things, it will be on the website sometime tomorrow morning. So thanks again.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Mrs. Claus, if you want me to assist you with that purple, there's 2 options. I used to have the same problem.
All right, yeah, that's what everybody says.
Some of us don't have the problem.
Yeah, so all right. Well,
have a good evening, everyone. Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
bye.
Take care.